Building a NECA world one panel at a time. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Street Scene Diorama. Yes, not only are we going to be having a look at the new Street Scene Diorama from NECA Toys, but we're also going to be building it, or I'm going to be building it. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink, and let's get ourselves started here. Now, obviously, when you get this out of the box, there's going to be, well, it's going to look like an earthquake hit this diorama. Everything is kind of coming in separate pieces that will require you to put everything together. I wanted to kind of do my best to show you guys the building process of getting from this to eventually what we will get as a finished diorama. Now, in order to do that, obviously, we're going to need ourselves an instruction guide, and thank goodness the folks over at NECA include a rather extensive diorama breakdown, like an instruction guide. The first page actually is only just the parts, giving you the various different like ceiling brackets, cardboard connecting points, and obviously the larger pieces that will come together to form this monstrosity. Then from there is the actual, well, a couple more plates here. Then we get to the real end of it, the connecting and building of these pieces. So again, I just kind of wanted to show you what each of them look, well, what everything looks like before we get down to building this diorama. Okay, so where do we start? The first page, according to the instruction guide here, is to remove the windows. Now, the windows are fairly easy, but before I want to show you that, I want to show you each of the individual windows, how they look with the window frame. The glass, which I'll show you in a second, will go actually behind this, but we don't want to get ahead of ourselves too much. Just want to show you the brickwork that they've done to each of the walls, keeping in mind this will be the bottom section. There's going to be one on the top there as well. We're going to kind of do this as best I can, step by step, so that you guys can see exactly how this all comes about. There also are very, very visible holes. Those will all get filled in as well. If you flip it around to the back, this is sort of where you're seeing, like, on the back there's not a lot of detail. To be fair, though, as a diorama, you're, of course, going to be looking at it from the front. You're not going to be looking at it from the back. So the first thing that we want to do in this very long journey to put this thing together is we're going to go ahead and take the windows off. Now, the windows, let me just pry these off here. Once I take one off, I'll show you how it works. The window pops off from its plate, and then these are attached via magnets. Like these sort of friction place themselves in there. It looks like there's magnets also in the backs also. You get yourself a bag of parts, basically bolts and all connector points and stuff like that. And within that, you'll also get yourself a smaller bag. I just happen to have them right here of glass, window glass. It's obviously not glass, it's really plastic. You're gonna go ahead and flip around the back of each one of these, and there's a hole. There's 2 holes on the top, there's 2 holes on the bottom, and those will connect to these peg points right here. So just fit that in place. You'll not necessarily always hear a snap, but you'll certainly know that these are completely in place like that. And then you're going to go ahead, there's the finished window, and you're just going to put that back in place. Just line it up with the grooves. It's clever in the sense that they made the brick shapes sort of hidden. Well, they hide it with the brick shapes so that you can easily take the windows off. And for the most part, you don't really see it. There are some areas like this section right here, where the bricks do seem a little bit more visibly dark than this section right here. What you're going to do, though, is you're going to take off, like I said, each one of these. There's 4 on this side, and I believe there's 2 on the bottom. This happens to be the top section of the diorama, and then we're just going to rinse and repeat until we've got all the windows in place. Now for the window assembly, I did sort of do things backwards. I worked on the top half of the diorama, leaving the bottom half as something I just finished up later. It was just to simply show you how each of the windows are installed exactly the same to one another. The bottom half is only going to have 2 windows. So now comes the part where you're going to be assembling. You're going to be taking the diorama and you're going to be attaching it to the main base, the main bottom. And this is what the bottom is going to look like. Now, you keep in mind that this section right here, where you see these notches, is going to be the front of the building facing. Everything beyond that point back here is going to be the inside of the diorama. So really, what you're only going to be looking at is the front sidewalk of the diorama. The sidewalk is very nicely done. You can even see like these little cracks and stuff that is formed in the concrete. They've airbrushed sort of areas around each of the tiles, the squares of concrete, and then you've got a nice band of yellow that runs around the front section here. So what we need to do is we need to take, I'm going to just move this out of the way for 1 second. You need to take this wall and it's going to line up just like that. But it's not just that. What you need to do, let me just flip this up so you guys can get a better feel for what I'm about to do. You need to take, see how each one of these bottoms of the wall, this here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, those will all fit into these little notches right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what you're basically going to be doing is you're going to be taking the wall, I'm just lifting it up, having it up on its end. You're going to fit those tabs into those slots. So when you see me doing it, I'm basically going to be putting it down and I'm going to be pushing it back. But there's a little bit more involved to it than just that. The other thing that you need to do as well is just bring that out a little bit. You'll see on both sides of the wall, there's these tab points, these little parts that are sticking up from the wall. What you need to do then is take these sidewall pieces and those will fit, those will connect to the side of the diorama. Now on the underside you'll be treated immediately to 4 holes. Those 4 holes, if I just move this over, connect to these 4 circular pegs located on the sides. So the easiest thing to do and the most logical thing to do is to connect this piece, these 4 tabs, 5 tabs, to these slots right here. Now when you put them in place, you'll see right off the bat, you flip around this wall face, on one side you'll see the same number, but they'll be offset from one another. You'll also see an arrow sort of telling you which way it goes in. Now if you flip it around, it lines up still either way. The holes don't seem to be misaligned from one top to the bottom area here. So really, as long as you are putting it with the arrow up or down, it doesn't look like it'd be different either way. But what you need to do is you need to have it where the space, where these are moved further up. You see how there's a space there, and there's a space up here. You need the section that has the space right down here, because then that will line up very easily with the slots on the side of the wall. Just attach those in place like that and like that. And then once that's in place, then you can attach it to these holes. Now we need to obviously do it on the other side as well, because on the other side we've also got those same tab points. Now that I've got both sides completed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach, this is the little bit more of the trickier part, I need to attach the walls in place. There's one side, and there's the other side here. And while you're also doing it, I'm going to flip this up, because what you also need to do is you need to line up those tab points. It's actually even easier if I just attach this wall. Let me show you what I'm about to do. Just detach this side of the wall. There we go. You're going to slide this forward, push this back, and then once those are in the tab points, you can then line up the holes and push everything down. Now that I've actually got that all in place, let me just show you what I've done. I've attached the 4 dots, or the 4 pegs on the one side, fed all of the slots into their provided grooves, and then connected the other side. You may actually find it's easier to kind of start one side, pop the 4 pegs down on the side wall, and then as you're working your way across, just sort of push the tabs in until you get to the other side, and then you can just push the 4 plugs in to finish off the bottom half or the bottom section of the diorama. Of course, there are some finishing touches for the bottom half. You want to take this connector point, which actually does seem to have, it looks like the water line that's running down the front, or it could also be the electricity line there too. But you're going to take those plugs, there's 2 at the top, there's 2 on the bottom, and you're going to tab connect these ones right here. So it'll be the one closest to the window, and you'll just kind of line up everything. It might even help you as well to tilt it up to kind of see what you're doing. And then just connect the bottom half. And then you've got that all finished. This will sit extremely loose. This just flops around. I'm surprised actually they didn't connect this in place. But eventually, again, it's going to resolve itself anyways because you're going to be putting the roof on top of that. I actually find myself getting a little ahead of myself, wanting to finish this off. Some of the other finishing points that you can add to the bottom half before you really resume with the rest of the construction is you'll also get a bag of these bricks, as you can see here. All the bricks seem to be the same. They may vary, if anything, by color, but they all pretty much look and act the exact same way. There's what one of the bricks look like, and then on the other end, you've got this connector tab. You could probably already see where this is going to be happening, this is going to be going. You're going to be taking the tab, or taking the brick, and just plugging this into place. Now, in all honesty, I don't really know why we're doing this. I don't really know why we're adding these extra bricks. I'm kind of just like looking, I'm surveying everything that's happening here. And I mean, none of these really, these openings here, connect to anything else. They could have actually just finished off the wall. I'm not really sure why they left the bricks specifically off. These ones right here. Because I mean, again, you could just, you know, this could have been a completely finished wall. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add the additional bricks. And I guess you may want to just color match it as best you can, because some of the bricks may not look like the same color as the bricks around it. Again, I'm just not really sure why I'm adding all these extra bricks. I mean, I get it, the fact that, you know, we're constructing stuff, but I'm looking at the instruction guide. There's no real rhyme or reason why specifically I have to be adding those bricks. It's not like we're finishing something that we've already connected, and then that finishes and seals over something that would have connected to itself. It really isn't the case. These are just open rectangular openings. You're really only just adding bricks to it. So again, I really don't understand why we're going through and we're doing this extra step. What now seems to be a finished bottom half of the diorama. I've already taken the liberty of adding those bricks. One thing also, again, to mention is if you are really a stickler for detail, you may want to kind of go through the bag of various bricks to find ones that are better suited for whatever the wall area that you're putting those replacement bricks in. You seem to have some extras, though to be fair, we have not started the top half yet. Let's go ahead and do that right now. Just before I go ahead and put on the top half, again, I want to show you how there is customization to the diorama here. Simply these doors right here, this revolving, I guess it's a kind of like accordion door. This whole section actually can unpeg. You'll notice it's the exact same width and the exact same length as this wall right here and as this window wall section right here. So again, you can pull these out. You can mix and match these to kind of get the layout that you want to get for the backdrop. The one thing I did notice though, once you kind of again get everything in place, when you are trying to pop this through, I find it's actually easier if you did all this stuff, decide right off the bat which way you want to go with putting and laying out the diorama. Do it with the actual individual panels. You know, take the doors out, just because when you start putting everything together and you're trying to pop through these walls and this door here, you do feel like this is starting to get a little bit more fragile. There's a little bit less give to it. Again, you can kind of go around to the back and just slowly push your thumb through the back. Or again, you can change out these panels and decide which way you want to lay this out before you get the bottom half finished. Now, just before I go ahead and put the top part of this, or the dividing part before we put the second story, the second tier, I just again want to show you what the top half looks like. A very distinctly different one than the one on the bottom. You'll know right off the bat because the bottom one will have the yellow trim kind of around the little sidewalk path there. This one doesn't have it. It sort of still has the same current sort of coloring as the bottom part. Really nice, again, dry brushing that they've added to just like around each of the individual panels of concrete. You flip it upside down, and all of this is already assembled. When you get this out of box, you don't have to assemble any of this part, but then this part is going to attach. You have the pegs on the sides. There's 4 on that side, 4 on this side, and then that's going to go ahead and peg to the very tops. Remember those 4 holes we looked at on either side? Yeah, these are going to peg into those. As we now go ahead and grab the top section, like I said, I've already gone ahead and added all the windows. You'll quickly realize that space becomes a commodity that you may not be able to afford. Still, I will push on and try to get all the rest of this put together and not lose a lot of space in the process. Now again, all of these windows do untab from one another. I know, we've already looked at all of that stuff. And of course, we're going to have to go ahead and add the bricks the same way as we did the bottom half. We're going to have to repeat the steps for the top. I'm going ahead and putting the bricks in for the top section, the second tier. And of course, I've realized quickly here that I've put bricks in a section that will be this, again, I think it's an electrical pipeline that's running from the top all the way down the front of the complex. I realized, though, I did put a couple of bricks on the top that I really shouldn't have, but it made for a good opportunity for me to show you how to remove them. As the pegs for the bricks stick out so far to the back, all you have to simply just do is push through on the other side like that, and you'll then go ahead and pop the bricks back out. I know initially I did say I don't know why they would have left the bricks off, why you would have to go in and then change them out. Well, again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's customization for this diorama, as we simply are going to be adding later on things like air conditioning units and whatnot. They've probably left these pegs, obviously they left the pegs out here for the reasoning of running this through, but they have probably left these off as well, so that if you wanted to change them out, put like an air conditioning unit there or even up there, you could be able to do that. I know, I'm never going to finish this, but one thing I did want to also show you as well, I'm going to just lay that wall down for a second. When you are putting the sides on, I mean, remember, if you go back to the beginning of the video, at the very beginning, or when we were putting the side walls on, the wall was about, well, it was about double the width of this. The one that you're putting onto the second story is actually going to be half the width, likely due to the fact that, of course, if you look at it, and I'll show you better looks in a second when we're kind of finished everything, the second story is actually further back. So because it's further back, you have a lot less side wall to worry about. All you'll have to do is just add those extra bricks onto the sides here. So this is basically where we are right now. I've already gone ahead and put the second story up, and I think before we go ahead and add the roof, I'm going to line up, and I'm going to take the second one of these, and I'm going to plug those into place. I've already gone ahead and taken those bricks off, as we've already looked at in this video, and then I'm going to go ahead and peg these into place. Like I said, you got 4 pegs at the bottom, 4 pegs on the top. You guys are very smart viewers. You saw all of this in the beginning of this review as we were kind of building this, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pluck that in place, plop that in place, and then we can go ahead and add the top. One thing I have to say, though, is as I've been building this, it's relatively easy. It may take some time, yes, to put everything together, the bottom and then to the top. A lot of the steps you'll find you'll be repeating, so by the time you get to the second tier, you already kind of know what you're going to be doing. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the brick. I noticed the brick that popped off onto the top, and I'm actually, while I'm at it of adding a brick, I think I'm going to take a brick off right here. And being that, again, you can customize this to your heart's content, the folks over at NECA Toys also includes a little outer external air conditioning unit. This comes inside a little baggie, and we just open up the bag. I don't have a knife here right now at the moment. Usually I would always have a knife readily available, but just open that up, slide that out, and if you flip it around, you'll notice it's the exact same shape as a brick. Oh, isn't that funny? Well, actually, what you can then do is decide whereabouts on this unit you want to put the air conditioning unit. Now, in the actual box, they put it up here. They took this one off, to be exact, and they put the air conditioning unit right there. The more I'm actually thinking about it, I almost prefer maybe to have the air conditioning unit maybe right there. A nice counterbalance to the fact that the accordion door is over here in the silver. I think I could almost kind of end it on this side too with a little bit of silver. So I think I might end up actually taking the brick off right here, right where my finger is pointing, and I'll go ahead and add the air conditioning unit there instead. I'm going to go ahead and then put the roof on. It's not really a whole lot to talk about in this case. The coloring is the same, and actually the way it connects in place is also the same. The thing you also have to be aware of as well is that this is going to overhang. This is going to stick further out from the top of the wall facing. So when you are plugging in place, you want to make sure that the pegs are certainly on the back. The way that they've designed it, you could in theory put it the opposite way, but again, you want that overhang happening. So we're going to go ahead and plug these peg points here and these circular peg points here to the provided holes located on the top. For the next step, you probably will notice we've changed views, and the reasoning for that is now we've finished really the front of the diorama. Now we're going to have to go back and we want to reinforce all the stuff that we've just done. You'll see obviously that on the top here, it's really kind of loose and raggedy. There's not a whole lot supporting it. If you even put a figure on top, even if a figure is made of plastic, it's not going to give you much stability. So the folks over at NECA Toys give you a couple little stabilizer support struts. That's a whole lot of S's. And what those are going to do is, I don't know if you can see it right there, there's a peg, and located right on the top, there's one right there and there. There's actually about a series of 5 of them running across the top. You're going to go ahead and take the pegs here, and I'll show you a closer look at it. You're going to peg these in place, and then this is going to give you just a little bit of support to support the top of the roof here. Let me go ahead and show you what I mean. So there's, like I said, there's a couple of pegs. You'll see boom, boom, without the sound effects, of course. There's a couple of peg holes there, and you're just going to take those supports and you're going to plug them in place. And right off the bat, just where I've plugged that one in, it already feels a little bit more stable. I'm going to go ahead then and repeat the same steps off camera, because I'm sure you guys don't want to have to see me doing this for all 5 times. But again, we're just going to go ahead and peg those in place, running it all along the top here, and just continue on our little way. Now I noticed one thing though, is you can see this one is probably the easiest one to spot out. You see how this panel, it starts here and ends here, and the support is actually just below that. I'm surprised actually that when they made these, instead of making them narrow, just single strips, I'm surprised they actually didn't make them like more like T's. Because if you peg them in place, then if you had side struts on either side, it would actually help support this part here, because it would basically be running across too. You even could have had peg holes, but at the very least, even if you had like a cross shape and that ran across the top, it would probably give you a little bit more support, as these are 2 connecting points to one another, these 2 connecting panels. For the next step, I've returned back to the first floor. Remember these little slots that were on the side? I know we talked about this repeatedly. You're going to then go ahead and take these little connector points that peg into the back. You'll see what purpose they serve in a second. It's to note though that you only get 6 of these, and yet even on this side here, this bottom half is 5 slots. The top has the same 5, so that gives you 20 different possible slots. So when you are plugging this into place, you may want to just kind of space these out. In fact, the instructions kind of tell you to put it on the bottom slot, the middle slot, and then the top slot there. I just said slot a whole lot of times. But we're going to go ahead, and what you're going to do is you're going to take it facing this way. Actually, I think it's facing this way here. And you're just going to peg that into place. Now again, this doesn't make much sense at the moment, but keep in mind again, when we get to the next part of it, you'll see exactly which way it's going. So again, when you plug it in place, you're going to take the narrow end of it here. See how it's got a broader end and it's got a narrow end? You're going to plug it in like this, or so that the peg holes are facing out. Again, I'm going to do this on both sides. And because you obviously don't need to see the entire steps of all 6 being put in place, we'll go ahead and go to the next step instead. So this is where we've left off, and you could, in theory, leave the diorama exactly as you see right here, of course, facing the other way. But the folks over at NECA give you a little bit extra that you can play around with, add a little extra oomph, if you will, to the existing diorama, and that is they give you a pretty neat little cityscape. Now this will plug in basically the opposite way around, and you'll see that there's holes on either side. Those holes, if you remember, will line up to the holes that we had facing out here. And you're going to attach these in place with the supplied pegs. You get, well, you get about 6 of these as well that'll line up, fit through the holes, as you can see right there, and that will plug into place. Now, they give you 2 options. They give you a cityscape, and if you flip it around, or flip it inside out, I should say, if we flip it this way, and you get yourself a dayscape, or in the morning scape, if you will. That will just plug into place. Like I said, you'll line it up, you'll put it up like this, and it's, you know, I'm of course blocking everything here. Don't worry, I'll show you. You're gonna plug this into place so that of course the cityscape that you want is facing outward, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's all said and done. Granted, yes, this would be so much easier if I did this off camera, but I just want to show you how it plugs into place. So you see how you've got that hole there from the back card, and then you've got the hole for that little side peg that we put into the, well, the side of the wall. You're going to take this little bolt and you're going to line it up, and it may involve you pushing it right against the backdrop, right against the diorama, I should say, and this will just plug into place. And like I said, it's probably a little bit easier if you do this on a dining room table, and certainly not while you're reviewing it, but that will just plug into place, and then we're going to repeat all the steps until everything is finished. So we're all finished. Here's what the bottom half looks like. Like I said, I've gone ahead and put it in the air conditioning unit down below. It just, for me, it makes sense down there. I mean, you, again, could put it up at the 2nd floor if you wanted to. We've already discussed ad nauseum, of course, as well, that you can swap out any one of these panels. So this one here can go with this one. You can flip those around. If you want to put a window over here, you can. If you want to put the accordion revolving sliding door, if you want to put that right there, you could as well. Again, I would just probably decide on doing that before you start putting the wall together. The more wall, I've noticed, the more you put together, the little more difficulty it may be trying to get these out, so that you want to be very careful popping those out on the back side of this unit. Speaking of backside, there's the 2nd floor, all finished, all looking pristine, and there is the cityscape up at the top there. Really liking, again, the look of that. And again, if you wanted to have that as a dayscape, it's simply just a case of flipping that around and having the dayscape instead. What's one thing I do want to mention, though, about when you are putting this on, is that I've noticed that the pegs are very loose when you are popping those in. And the other thing as well, remember when we were putting those little supports on the sides of the wall that had the holes that would eventually line up to all of this backdrop, this little back card here? It might be in your best interest, as I realized later on, to kind of line up the backdrop on the back of it first to decide where those have to go. I said you really could put them anywhere. That's not the case. You do have to specifically decide strategically where you're going to be putting those, because that will decide how many of these holes can line up. But even like when putting in the pegs, I've noticed that the pegs do pop out frequently. If this is a deciding route you want to go, where you want to permanently put this in place, you could maybe go the route of adding some floor polish or something to, like nail polish or something on the back of those pins, because those pins pop out. That's a whole lot of P's. Pop out a little bit too frequently. If they were just a little bit thicker, I find like they go in way too easy and they pop out way too easily. So you may want to just add some nail polish or a little bit of glue or something on the end of those little pin pegs that go on the sides, just so they stay in place a little bit better. But that's how everything looks when it's all said and done. I'm getting pretty happy with this. It was pretty easy to put together. It was just more time occupying than anything else. Granted, yes, I was doing most, if not all of this in front of camera. If I was doing this, say, on a dining room table or somewhere away from the camera, probably would have taken a little less time to put together. I think total put together time probably will take you only about 15, possibly 15 to 20 minutes when it's all said and done. Now, obviously, you're probably watching this review. If this is an action figure diorama, how does it look with action figures? Well, we'll go ahead and grab a couple of, didn't mean to startle you there for a second, take a couple of the cartoon turtles. This is cartoon Leonardo, also from the folks over at NECA Toys. I feel like I would want to be including NECA figures, just because it's produced by NECA. If I am going to properly give this a proper review, I feel like I want to be giving it with NECA figures. But again, you could really use it for anything, really. Here is Raphael. Put him right there. What are they doing kind of just hanging around this building? Well, they're probably hanging around this building because they've just confronted the shred head. There's the shredder. Still want to do something about his cape, but there is the shredder. What would you say? The wall face is maybe about a half figure taller. We'll go ahead and do some measurements in a second. And also, while we're at it, why not throw in a foot soldier? After all, Shredder can't be left alone. For all we know, if we want to play out this scenario for ourselves, maybe Shredder is going into this chemical building to take some chemicals or whatever else that Krang may need back at Dimension X. The Turtles have caught wind of this, and of course they've stopped him dead in his tracks. And then just to give you an idea, so we're going to go ahead, let's take the dimensions for Shredder. We know he's about a 7-inch tall figure. He was like about, what, 6'7", and we'll just measure off to how tall, like, the first wall is. The first wall on its own is 9.5 inches in height. 9.5 inches in height, remember that, 9.5 inches in height, which then in centimeters worked out to be 24. So it's about 24 centimeters. That's pretty tall. And keep in mind, on top of that, we're dealing with 2 floors here. Just in case also you were wondering how tall this all is when it's said and done, taking the Ultrameasure as best as I can and measuring to the very top. I'm going to stop it right there. Now from the bottom where we started from, you know, the bottom right down there, to the very top of the diorama display, you're looking at a pretty impressive 29.7. It's about 30 centimeters in height, which in centimeters works out to be, let's go ahead and do that now. Centimeters, you're looking at a whopping 75, almost 76 centimeters tall. And of course, because I aim to please, let's get the dimensions for how long it is or how wide it is, because I know somebody's going to probably also want to know, how wide is this? After all, if I'm going to be putting this on a shelf, for example, how wide is it from here to here? Well, we know already how tall it is. From one side to the other side of the wall, the diorama here from NECA Toys stands, or width-wise stands, 25 inches from here to here, which in centimeters works out once again to being 64 centimeters exactly. Now, based on the fact also that I find this diorama to be a little bit more realistic, let's do a couple of other comparisons, shall we? So we're going to go ahead and take the foot soldier off, take the shredder off, and let's bring in a couple of movie turtles. Even though we don't technically have a movie shredder or a movie foot soldier of this scale, to which this diorama is best suited for, these turtles are a little bit taller and a little bit more realistically proportioned. So let's go ahead and put those out. And just to kind of give you an idea of how tall, say, the movie turtles are to the top of the bottom half. And then again, if you wanted to, we'll just bring the camera up here. There's nothing to say really that you couldn't put them on the second half either. Or if you really wanted to be daring, you could also put the turtles on the top half here. Or even if you wanted to, why not bring some horror characters into the mix? Now this is Friday the 13th Part 4, also from the folks over at NECA Toys. This would be a great way to display Jason, but I think I have a certain idea in mind when it comes to the top half of this. If down the road we just happen to get ourselves a Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, Jason Voorhees, I could very easily see myself putting Jason Voorhees standing on the very top. As the diorama has 3 levels or 3 floors, it certainly does open the door for how you want to display your figures. I think for the time being, until we get ourselves a Part 8 Jason, fingers crossed, fingers crossed, fingers crossed, I think for the time being, I might find myself very much inclined to displaying the movie turtles, the 7-inch movie turtles, displayed on the very top here. Sort of a nice way to have them overlooking the city, keeping an eye on any foot activity. If space is something that you certainly have the luxury of, I would most definitely recommend picking up the NECA Toys diorama display. I hope this isn't the last that we're going to be getting. It does give you some customizable options. Like I said, you could untab and detach the different windows and move them around. Granted, yes, you get 6 windows out of a possible 8 panels. So there's not a whole lot you can move around in that case. But the bare wall, for example, you could put on the second floor. The accordion door you could move over if you wanted to. And you can even move over the air conditioner. I would have loved also if NECA Toys could have given us some other swappable options. Maybe some damaged bricks. I guess you could, in theory, leave some of the bricks out if you wanted to. But I hope this does open the doorway for future diorama pieces from NECA Toys. It certainly didn't have to be this scale. This size is a monstrosity. But if they could somehow maybe release smaller scales, maybe even as each one of these panels, each one of these floors is made up of technically 4 panels, maybe they could have also down the road released just a half the panel, if that makes any sense. So instead of basically looking at this as we are right now, if it was half the width and maybe a quarter the size, so only really one of these, it still is something that you could put your figures in front of, just in case space was the issue. Now that I actually think about it, that would have been one great thing that they could have also done to this as well. Make this a sectional display base, a sectional diorama, in which you could have actually halved, divided it in half if you wanted just to display like a quarter, or display them in various parts of your room where you didn't have to build the whole thing as one fully finished piece. Either way, like I said, space is probably going to be your biggest allowance that you're going to need. Obviously, based on this review and the fact that I couldn't even almost fit all of this into frame, hopefully gives you some idea as to how big this is. And certainly, putting it next to 7-inch figures, you really see how large and how impressive the NECA Toys diorama is. If you guys are interested in picking this one up for yourself, you should be able to now find it in most online stores. And again, if you are someone that does have the space, because this certainly would be the deciding factor as to whether you have the space or not. If you do have the space and you've always wanted to display your NECA Toys, your NECA figures in a certainly more grander scale, most definitely pick up the new NECA Toys diorama. Today we were having a look at just that, and in the process of doing that we were also building it, just to kind of show you guys how easy it was to snap together and put together. I would imagine when you do run out of space, it'd probably be just as easy to take it apart. I'd probably, as for the time being, I don't really have the space for this. I'm going to have to see if I can find the space. I mean, it's too cool for me to want to disassemble it again. I'm going to have to find a good section of my living space where I can actually put this out on display. And then maybe I'll, like I said, put out those movie turtles down the road. Hopefully we'll get ourselves a Part A Jason. I'll put that on the top. And maybe get a couple of dumpsters or something on the side. Oh, that's going to be fun. In the meantime, today, muchachos, we were building and having a look at the brand new NECA Toys diorama display. If you guys liked this video, why not hit it with a like? And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below, because certainly more videos, more NECA videos, will be coming soon. Stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.